We do have some 16 speaker cards tonight. Divide them in two ways. The first will be on the Chinatown site. The second will be the regular numbers of speakers on varied topics. But first 8 are related to the Chinatown site. First we'll call on Kevin Aiken, followed by Scott Federick.
Good evening. I'm Kevin Aiken, 20212 Harvard Way, Riverside. This morning, a court schedule was agreed on for hearing the Chinatown case. It's going to be going on through the summer. It is going to be, whether you like it or not, a central feature in the 2009 city election campaign. Mr. Jacobs, who has given money to a number of local officials, basically went on a rampage weekend before last, violated several laws, quite a number of them actually, when you count them all up, and then in court declarations made some statements that are quite clearly false and easily proved false. That's called perjury. That's going to be an issue that's going to be brought up in legal venues as well as publicly during the election campaign. I would strongly suggest to each of you who has received campaign contributions from Doug Jacobs that it might be very advisable, at least if you're up for election this year, that you return those contributions and make sure that that's publicly known, because if you don't, I would certainly expect that to be a major issue in the election. One example of what Mr. Jacobs said in court, actually his lawyer said it in court, he put it in a written declaration, is that he's been incurring a cost of $1,300+ a day for security. Now that's the best monitored site in Riverside. We have community volunteers who are going by and having a good look at the site over and over every day. Because the morning that we started that policy, we found 11 earth movers and backhoes on the site belching smoke and digging things up. So we're being very careful about monitoring it, even though there is now a restraining order preventing Mr. Jacobs from continuing work on it for some time. There hasn't been security present since a week ago, and he's claiming, in order to exaggerate his alleged costs, he's claiming that he's been paying $1,300 a day for security. Now, I've arranged security for events before, and I know that if you pay $1,300 for security and you're getting what you pay for, you can find them. We can't. There's been a number of other problems. You'll see a lot about it in the newspaper, I believe, from this morning and probably tomorrow, and I suspect all the way through at least the end of August, and quite possibly, if it's necessary to appeal, on through sometime next year. It's a major issue. Be careful. Thank you.
Scott.
Got a bit of a cold, so you'll have to excuse me. Good evening. I'm Dr. Scott Federick, a professor of anthropology and archaeology at the University of California, Riverside. I'm also a resident of Riverside and a member of the Save Our Chinatown Committee. I spoke to you at the City Council meeting back in October of last year, expressing my opposition to the planned construction of a medical office building at the Chinatown Archeological site by developer Doug Jacobs. In December, I spoke before the Cultural Heritage Board in opposition to acceptance of a seriously flawed archaeological treatment plan for excavation of the site by the environmental consulting firm of ICF Jones and Stokes. I spoke before the Land Use Committee in January when my appeal of the treatment plan was considered and denied. At all of these meetings, I and the public were assured that a full scientific state-of-the-art excavation of the Chinatown site would be conducted before the development project could begin. We were assured that the many conditions of approval for the project added on by the Cultural Heritage Board, the Planning Commission, would guarantee that the excavation was done right. A meticulous excavation costing as much as $2 million was assured by the City Council and promised by developer Jacobs. On Valentine's Day, February 14th, a 3-day earth-moving rampage was begun at the site. As many as 10 gigantic earth-moving machines rolled around the site at one time, frantically ripping up the ground and the site beneath it. Work continued through Sunday and the Monday holiday in knowing violation of city ordinance. In my 30 years of archaeological field experience, I have participated in and supervised archaeological digs that involve the use of heavy machinery to remove overburden and to discover buried archaeological features. What happened over the holiday weekend would not be considered acceptable practice for the use of heavy equipment at an archaeological site. In the end, the mechanical operation, supposedly directed by archaeologists, seemed unable to find the Chinatown site among the piles of bulldozed soil, rubble, and artifacts. What did they find? Jacobs claimed that all that was found was some broken pottery in a small area that will later be hand dug. Other than that, we're done, claimed Jacobs. So much for a scientific, state-of-the-art archaeological excavation. The archaeological treatment plan and many of the conditions of approval for the project were flagrantly violated by Jacobs and his mechanical minions. We may have already lost much of Chinatown to this blind assault on the site. Hopefully some portion of the site still exists. City Council members, you are now at a crossroads. Is the City Council going to let this violation of the Chinatown